All right, welcome back to our Becoming Your Best podcast listeners. So grateful for you joining us wherever you're at in the world today. And this is going to be an awesome guest today. Not only is he amazing because I am a subscriber of his own courses and I've watched them and participated in his own courses, but just what he's teaching is really life-changing for anyone that does it. And we'll get into what all of that means here when we get into the podcast. But I came across Lee Holden about 6 or 7 months ago. And we get nothing from what we're doing today as far as an affiliate agreement or anything like this. I'm having him as a guest because I believe in what he's doing. It's just been powerful. And I, again, will reiterate what I said. I think it's life-changing for anybody that will do that. And in today's crazy world, we need more of what he's going to talk about. And so what we're going to focus on today is what's called Qi Gong. And if you've never heard of it, that's all right. He's going to get into details around what that means. If you've maybe heard it in passing, but not sure what it means, that's all right. Or maybe you have even practiced Qi Gong or a cousin of Qi Gong, and that's great. He's going to share some different insights that will apply basically to anywhere that we are today as a starting point. So with all that said, first of all, Lee, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Rob. I'm so glad that you're doing your Qi practice. It gives us so much more to talk about from an experiential point of view, and that's what this practice, where it really shines is when people start practicing it, because it feels amazing.
It does. And I've experienced that myself. And so let's jump into this, because there's a lot of people listening to this that will have never heard of Qi Gong, or maybe they heard the term and they don't really know what it might mean. So first of all, what is Qi Gong, and how did you get into, the stuff that you're doing now as far as an instructor, and this is what you're doing for your life work at this point. And so what is it, and how did you get to this point where you're at now?
That's a great question. I got into it through collegiate sports. I was a collegiate soccer player, and I had an injury. There's nothing like an injury that just brings you face to face with who you are, what life's all about. When you're injured, you're just like, oh my gosh, health is the most important thing in my life. And how can I get healthier? So I had a low back injury. I was 19 years old. And the doctors told me that I wasn't going to play the rest of the season. So I was kind of hobbling around for a month. I had tried the painkillers. I got some cortisone shots, and nothing was working. In fact, the painkillers gave me a stomach ache. So now I had back pain and a stomach ache. And I remembered, in my hometown, I had taken some martial arts classes. And one of those martial artists was an acupuncturist as well as a Qigong teacher. In fact, I saw him break a big stack of bricks. And I remember this stuck out so relevantly in my mind, because afterwards I said, how did you do that? And he said, the power of Qi. And so I always remember this. And I was like, I'm going to go see that guy and see if he could help me with my back. Because after he broke the big stack of bricks, he said, Qi is for healing. It's not for hurting people, which is a good point to make for a 10-year-old. So I went and saw him. He gave me some acupuncture. He showed me these really simple stretches and these Qigong exercises. And in about a week, I was about 90% better. In about 2 weeks, I was 95% better and playing soccer again. And I was showing all my soccer player friends the exercises. I started teaching them. I was like, check this out. Look at this. If you feel like you're tight in your back or you have tension in your neck and shoulders, try these few moves. And it was just a revelation for me, because it was like, why aren't more people doing these very natural things to help their bodies heal? And it became a catalyst for me to go into this line of work. So what was my kind of worst moment turned into some of my best moments, because it was this catapult for me to go in a different direction. And I immediately started studying Qigong. I started practicing it on a daily basis. I started sharing it with my friends, and it became sort of my life's mission to help spread the word and help people activate their own healing power. Rob, you said, what is Qigong? I think this is a big question. Qi simply means energy. It is life force energy, and we all have energy. It's what keeps you alive. It's the beating of your heart. It's the light in your mind. It's your very breath. So Qi is this aliveness within you. And Gong simply means to work with. So it can be translated as energy work, breath work, or just a skill at living life, the skill at working with your mind, your thoughts, your consciousness, your spirit, your emotions, your body, and how they all integrate together, which is very, very fascinating because it is like holistic medicine.
Well, and just building, I actually wrote 2 little notes while you were talking there, Lee. Number one, what you said about health. And I think anybody listening to this can resonate because at some point in our life, we've all had an injury or something, mental, physical, whatever it is. And I just love this quote that I heard about a year ago. It's resonated with me. And that is, a person without health has one dream, and a person with health has many dreams.
Absolutely.
In other words, if we don't have health, if we're not in a healthy place, our only focus is, man, let's get this fixed, survival, whatever that is, right? And that's why Qigong can be so powerful. And the other thing that I might just note on this is you talk about Qi. There's guaranteed to be some skeptics out there. And I have no problem with someone being skeptical. What I hope that will lead to is more research and someone doing a little bit more digging to find out for themselves. When you talked about this energy and the spirit that's inside of us, no one can actually refute that, though. Because how is it that the human body, if you connect the nodes correctly, we can power a light bulb?
Absolutely.
And so no one can dispute or refute the fact that we are beings of energy. And that's pretty much irrefutable. So let's build on that. Now that you've been doing this for years and you have made it your life work, and again, I'll just reiterate, I know you because I've been doing your courses for 6 months, and I can attest to the positive impact they've had in my life as well as thousands of others. So now from your perspective, since you've been doing this for years, what are some things that you've learned or observed along the way?
Yeah, and those are such great points. I mean, what I've learned and observed is just what you said, that health is our greatest asset, and energy has a big part in that. And energy can make a big difference in your life. Whether you believe in it or not, I can ask almost anybody, say, how's your energy? And people either say, I'm feeling a little down, I'm feeling a little low. And whether you believe it or not, it's besides the point, because a practice like Qigong can really help you live your best life. And Qi, let's make no mistake, it is irrefutable, but it's also mystical. It has a long history in ancient cultures, whether it's Ayurveda from India, Native American, Chinese medicine. They work with this life force energy. Well, Western medicine does too. We just do it in a very, very different way. We're doing it from a symptomatic approach, like, I have a headache, so take a painkiller. We're working on from the symptoms and trying to establish health by getting rid of the sickness, where in Chinese medicine, you work on health directly. So you're going to be working on, let's say, your vitality, how much energy you have. Qigong is a practice of lowering stress, getting you out of pain, and increasing your energy, right? And we do increase energy from a natural internal place rather than, let's say, an external, I need an energy drink or a cup of coffee kind of place. We want it naturally. And there's many different kinds of energy within you. And you all know that. There's the energy of relaxation. There's the energy of sleep. There's the get up and go energy. There's the energy of inspiration and excitement. What's the difference between inspiration, excitement, passion, or being depressed, down, and anxious? Those are 2 very different qualities of energy. And, just think about your emotional state. There's nothing physical about that. It is energy moving through you, energy, emotion, energy in motion. We can't do open heart surgery and see how much love you have in there. It is a vibration. It is energy. And so in Qigong, we say life is ruled by invisible forces. And those invisible forces is your mind. There's electrical impulses in your brain that create thoughts. But just the fact that when you close your eyes and you can see images, you just touch upon the mystical right there, because there's no light source in your mind. There's just these electrical impulses. There's no projector that allows you to see images like a movie screen. Even your heartbeat is something very mystical. When I was interviewing a doctor, they said, your heartbeat is so mysterious. It's like a match that learned how to strike itself. And then it burns down and it regrows itself and strikes itself again. This energy in your heart doesn't work like normal physics. It's mysterious. It's mystical. Nobody knows how it started. In Chinese medicine, it would be called heart Qi, the life force behind the heart. And the way in which energy flows and circulates through you determines how happy, healthy, and fulfilled we are in our lives. So it can be very, very important to work with. Like I said, Gong means to work with it in a skillful way. And you could just look at your life and say, hey, am I working with my Qi, the gift, this precious life force energy that we've been endowed with? How well am I working with it? What's the quality of my thoughts? What are the quality of my emotions? How much vibrancy and vitality do I have in my body? And how do those integrate? That's the practice that we work with. Qigong is a movement practice like Tai Chi and yoga or breath work or mindfulness, but it really addresses all layers and aspects of yourself. I tell people, hey, you don't always have enough time to go to the gym, practice meditation, and do a yoga class. But in Qigong, you get all of those things in one concise practice without having to put on your spandex. You can do it in just everyday street clothes. And the beautiful thing about it is you can, in about 20 minutes, feel a complete shift where your stress levels go down and your energy levels go up. And when you're energized, you are a better version of yourself. When you have low energy and you're depleted, life becomes overwhelming. We don't act from our best selves. We actually get agitated, irritated, we're snappy. So the whole practice is to increase energy to stay centered and move through life in a flowing, effortless way.
That's really well said, Lee. So let me build on that with a couple more questions here. So you mentioned Tai Chi and yoga and things like that. And I actually really love what you just said, because that's one of the challenges that people face is, I know meditation is important. Well, okay, meditation. I know yoga is important. Okay, yoga. Okay, now you're telling me one more thing, Qigong. What I love that you said, though, is it's really a combination of those. And so it's not the only one in the world, certainly, but this is a very powerful one-stop shop where a person can get all of those. And that's exactly been my experience. And so just since there's, I don't want to call them synonymous terms, but someone that's not familiar with this might hear Tai Chi or Qigong. What's the difference between yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong?
Yeah, and Tai Chi and Qigong are really similar. They come from the same source. So we often say Qigong is the mother of Tai Chi. Tai Chi is about 800 years old. Qigong dates back some 4,000 or 5,000 years into the early practices of Chinese medicine. In fact, I think this is a really interesting point. People would pay their Chinese medicine doctor to keep them healthy. And so the Chinese medicine doctor would do acupressure, dietary, herbal recommendations, and they would teach them Qigong exercises. Now, as long as you were healthy, you kept paying your doctor. And as soon as you got sick, you stopped paying. So it really was true healthcare. You pay for health, and as soon as you got sick, you're like, hey, doctor, you're not doing your job. Can you imagine going to the doctor and saying, you know what, doc, I got a headache. I'm not going to pay you today. Our medicine is totally based on sick care, not health care. And, we have a great medicine. I mean, Western medicine is amazing, especially for emergency medicine. But to live your best life, to increase health and vitality, to stay on the journey of health and not just wait till we get sick, you need to look somewhere else like this type of practice. Now, Tai Chi was really, it started as a martial art. The Tai Chi martial artists were very powerful because they cultivated internal energy. They cultivated Qi. And Tai Chi became very well known in China because the Tai Chi masters went around China and challenged other martial artists into sparring competitions. And they did so well that the Imperial Guard said, hey, we want you to teach and train our army. And so they did, and Tai Chi kind of spread that way. But Tai Chi really is a internal martial art, where Qigong has much more to do with health, vitality, healing yourself, activating internal power and energy. Nowadays, people practice Tai Chi the same reason they practice Qigong, for energy cultivation, for relaxation, for flexibility. But Tai Chi is a little more challenging to learn because you have to memorize movements. So it takes longer to learn, where Qigong is a little more accessible because one movement repeats itself for a little bit, and then you go on to the next movement. Well, Tai Chi and Qigong really sprung forth from China. Yoga sprung forth from India. And there was a lot of sharing of information. In fact, one of the most famous Qi Gong Masters was an Indian yogi, a traveling yogi called Bodhidharma. And he crossed over through Tibet into China. And he combined martial arts exercises, Qigong practices, and started the Shaolin temples with postures and breathing exercises. So there was a lot of sharing of information between China and India. Indian yoga, is a lot of the postures, you hold them, you stretch and breathe into postures, and then maybe flow into another posture. Well, Qigong is much more, let's say, flowy, much more soft and gentle. In fact, Qigong movements mirror the movements of water, recognizing that water is very soft, gentle, relaxing, but it's also very powerful, right? You stand in a river current, you feel the power of that water. You stand in an ocean wave. Wow, it is very powerful. So when you train to move your body like water, you you connect to that flow state and integrate or allow your energy to be very coherent, which generates that internal power. And I think that's where the magic of this practice is when you get into those flowing movements, because your body's moving, but you're also in a very meditative state of mind, and you access that deep internal energy reserves.
I love that. And I've done a lot of yoga, and I like yoga. If I had to put them side by side, I really do like Qigong more for the flowing reasons that you talked about. I feel like there's a flow to it. Good water analogy. I really like that as well. So here's a personal question. I'm guessing that others that get into this will have a similar question. So this is as much for me as it might be for the listeners. And that is, and I'm guessing I know the answer here, but I am curious to hear from your perspective. And that is, does it matter the amount of time, the frequency, meaning the number of times or days a week that we do this? Does it matter the amount? And if so, how much does it matter? And I know the answer is going to be, of course, the more we do it, the better it is. And I'll just give our listeners an example. So I've been in your courses now for 6 or 7 months, and you have a short version on your courses that you do throughout the week. Then you have a longer version, which is about an hour. Your short versions are like 20 minutes. And those are typically what I've been doing. And in the back of my mind, I'm always asking, what am I missing out on by not doing the hour? And that's the genesis of my question. And does it matter? Or how much does it matter? Maybe is the better question.
Right. And that's great. That is a great question. And kind of like, what's the minimal amount of time to make an impact in my life? And kind of, I always ask people, what are your goals? Where are you starting from? So if your life, if we plotted it out on a map, we can say, hey, where are you starting from and where do you want to get to? If somebody's very, ill or sick or has low energy, their practice the journey to that destination might be a little bit different than let's say you, Rob, where you're, maybe healthy, you practice many different things to stay healthy. You doing a 20-minute version is going to have a lot of effect because you're already in good shape. So it depends on the person, depends on, age, health, energy levels, and goals. But you can get a wonderful practice in 20 minutes. And folks, what Rob was talking about was my subscription. So each week I do 3 classes. We break those into a 20-minute or an hour version of that subscription. And then you can choose based on the day. And you can get a lot of benefits in a short practice, especially if you're consistent. So what I tell people is, hey, maybe today you do 20 minutes. Maybe tomorrow you only do 5 minutes. But maybe the next day you can get an hour in. So mix it up a little bit. The most important thing is that you get a variety of movements in your daily life. And you're talking about earlier research from a Western medicine perspective, and it's now well researched that sitting is not good for you. Sitting too long, they call it the new smoking. Yeah. Sedentary people, it's unhealthy. And it's better to get a variety of movement in your body, just like it's good to have a variety in your diet of healthy foods. Get a variety of movements. So flowing movements, exercise, a walk, a little weightlifting. That variety can be very, very healthy. And what I like about Qigong is it does give you a wide variety of exercises that are really important. So all that being said is kind of look at your life. If you only have 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. I coach people through, in companies like Qi breaks. So every, let's say, hour or two, stand up and do 3 minutes of Qi Gong. Do something really simple. Do something simple while you're seated. Just, you could do Qi Gong. A Qi Gong practice could be taking some nice, slow, deep breaths. You don't even have to move, but just doing something and being aware of your energy is going to pay dividends and rewards. You know what I also tell people is that you don't have time not to do Qigong, because when you do your practice, you are more efficient, you're less stressed, you're more energized, there's clarity in your mind, you get a lot more done when you're energized than when you're fatigued.
Yeah, well, amen to that. And that's exactly what I've experienced. So let me ask you this. And again, I probably know maybe part of the answer, but I would love to hear your perspective. Is all Qigong created equal? In other words, I've gone to YouTube and I found a ton of YouTube videos, Qigong, 10-minute this and 5-minute that. And of course, I think I know the answer, which is, of course, they're not. Mm-hmm. Having said that, if someone was just starting out, and this is where I'm going with the question, if someone's just starting out, what's something they can do right now to get started and try it?
Absolutely.
And I love the way that you approach it. There's a structured approach to it. You have a ton of courses on your website for different things. I'll just say things to keep it pretty broad. So, someone that's listening to this podcast and like, hey, this Qigong sounds kind of cool. Sounds kind of interesting. What can I do? What would you suggest?
Exactly that. I think try it, because you trying it is a great way to sort of get an internal perspective, have an experience of it. And lots of people have these aha moments when they give it a try. It's a wonderful set of practices just for health and vitality. Now, there are 3,000 styles of Qigong. So there's a lot of different practices. And one of the things that happened to me after I graduated from college, I got hired as a ghostwriter for a Qi Gong Master who lived in Thailand. So I flew to Thailand a few times a year, spent months training with this particular master. But I had the same question. I wanted to learn from other people. I wanted to see what they were doing in China, what they were doing in Japan. So I did trips to China, Hong Kong, Beijing, all across China to study with different teachers and masters. There's masters in Tokyo and in Japan. I studied with masters in Indonesia as well. And then the question for me was, how do I explain this to my soccer player friends that are now getting work in Silicon Valley and all stressed out? And here I was traveling to Asia. They were making a lot more money than I was, but I was having some really interesting experiences. And it's true. There's styles of Qigong that are very stationary, like standing meditations. There's Qigong styles that are very stretch oriented. There's Qigong styles that are very martial oriented. You break Qigong into 3 different categories. One is medical, like we're talking about. That's kind of where I focused first and foremost. How do we use this practice to create healing in our own lives, to stay healthy, to cultivate vibrant health? There's martial styles where you cultivate Qi and energy for your martial arts training. And then there's spiritual styles that were very much meditative oriented, where you sit in meditation and maybe you circulate energy and you connect to the universe, your purpose for being here on this planet, divine wisdom, and then you figure out how they all integrate together. And the integration of those practices can be very, very, very helpful. So that's what I love about it. And the reason I chose the particular style that I did is because I wanted to explain it to people in modern life. And so my particular style is integrative. It's a way in which it helps us with those very things that we need, which is stress management, pain, neck tension, and low back issues. I want it to be immediately helpful for your life.
Hey, we got his daughter joining us. For those listening, this is awesome. I can see his daughter. So how old's your daughter right there?
How old are you? She's 3.
Oh, that's a fun age.
She's napping, but somebody snuck out of bed and now is saying hi to everybody. And speaking of energy, Rob, this one has a ton of energy. 3-year-olds have a lot of energy.
Oh, that's awesome. How many kids do you have total, Lee?
I have 4 daughters.
Hey,
So
you're
now
close.
you know the real reason I do Qigong.
Okay, so that was fun to meet Lee's daughter there. It looks like she's off now, and someone else has got her. So that was fun to see your family there, Lee.
Thanks,
As
Rahul.
we get ready to wrap this up, one of my, I guess this is where this comes from. The way I found you was doing exactly what we were just talking about. I had gone to the internet. I had found all these different YouTube videos. I had watched and done a lot of them. So, different people, different styles. And here was my issue with that, is there wasn't a lot of structure to it. And to your point, I mean, doing something is better than nothing. But I just felt like it would be nice to have something that was a little more consistent without me just having to go to YouTube and picking any random person. And that's when I came across your site, which is holdenqigong.com. And I'll just spell this out for people. HOLDEN, and then QI is the Qi, and then Gong, GONG. So holdenqigong.com. And again, we get nothing from this. There's no affiliate relationship. I'm promoting this because I've really experienced the benefits from it. And what I loved about your site is the organization and the structure and the flow, as well as the flexibility. We talked about the short versus the longer version. If someone's dealing with certain things like anxiety or other issues, you have specific courses designed just for those. That's my perspective on it. How did you get to the point where you set it up so well? Because I think you have a really well organized site and system and processes in place that could really be beneficial to people for that reason. I'm just curious, how did you get there from traveling around the world, being a ghostwriter for other people? Because it's really well organized, and I've loved the way you've set it up on your site.
Yeah, Rob, that's a great question. I set up my site like this because I wanted to give people tools and resources to handle their most challenging problems, whether it had anxiety, insomnia, back pain, neck and shoulder pain, high blood pressure, digestive issues. I wanted them to really understand that this practice could help them heal. And at the time where I started breaking my practices down into condition specific, I had shows on public television that were starting to be really popular. I had a PBS show that went out across the country because I designed it that way. I said, Qigong for stress. Or people would be like, I got stressed. Let me try this weird thing that's called Qi what? And then they got into Qigong from there. I wanted to make it really practical, accessible. I wanted to explain this practice without just saying, hey, just do it and follow me. I wanted you to understand that, hey, meditation is good for you. It's anti-aging. People that meditate biologically have an age about 10 years younger than their actual age. Same with exercise. Exercise is good for you. And when you combine them, you get this really beautiful, beneficial practice that can start to not only heal your ailments, but also give you a lot more energy and vitality. And I was finding that as my shows went out on public television, people were writing in and saying, wow, I feel better. It helped me with this. I had a much larger audience to see that, yes, this practice really, really worked. And it worked in this beautiful way from the inside out. They didn't have to take a pill. You didn't need a surgery. You had this power of healing from the inside out, which we all do. And that is what really was making me passionate about this practice. So now, instead of having DVDs, I have online courses for condition-specific ailments. We have a subscription to keep your energy high. And then I've done everything all the way up to a teacher training where people are going through my online teacher training with our teachers, with myself, and getting certified so that they can start to spread the word and teach and help people truly master their own internal energy.
Well, I'm glad you articulated that. And this is really something we could sit here and listen to all day long, but in the end, we have to experience it, right? I mean, it's one of those things that we just have to experience. And so I know that you have your website, holdenqigong.com. Is that the best place for, and I don't know the answer to this, that's why I'm asking, is that the best place for someone to go who's just starting out? Do you have a landing page that's a different landing page, or what's the best place for someone to go if they wanted to look into this?
Yes, holdenqigong.com. That is the best place to go. We have currently a free 2-week trial, so you can come take those classes that Rob was talking about and try it out for free and try it for yourself. You get access to the 20-minute version, the hour version. There's little meditations involved. If you look at holdenqigong.com, you can see a lot of condition-specific ailments. So you can say, oh yeah, I have insomnia, click, and you have a whole routine that's that's there for you. We have samples of a lot of those things on YouTube as well. So you can check out HoldenQigong.com or Holden Qigong on YouTube and just see a bunch of little short routines. But the place to get the full routines and all of that stuff is HoldenQigong.com. So I appreciate that.
And one of the things I just got to laughingly say, it's the coolest thing. I love the names of all these movements. Now we're going to do flowing dragon goes to the water.
Hey, I like that. That was a good one.
Or whatever it is. Name the...
Yeah, they're all poetic. And, Qigong originated by mirroring the movements of nature. So, whether it's tree sways in the wind or, swimming dragon or the bear frolics, it's just these people watched nature move and said, hey, we're part of nature. Let's move our bodies in these very natural ways and get this Qi, life force energy circulating and see what happens. And what happened was they just became a better version of themselves, happier and healthier and more resourced when they do these practices.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Lee. I hope that as a result of listening to this, that if you're out there listening, wherever you're at in the world, that if nothing else, this has sparked your interest enough to say, I'm going to look into this a little bit more. Maybe there's something to this. And maybe there is, right? And so for you listening, I would encourage you to look into this. See what impact it might have after doing it for a week or two. See how you feel. And if it's really benefiting you, great, keep it up. If not, then of course you can stop. So it's one of those things that I view as, nothing lost, a lot gained. And so as we get ready to wrap up, any final comments, Lee, that you would like to make?
No, I just appreciate you sharing this information with your audience and how you set up this interview. It was just great and very skillful. I think the more people that know about this practice, the better their lives are going to be. When I look at modern life, speaking of teenagers, kids aren't taught this, and we haven't been taught how to access our resources. We all have technology and devices, but we don't have this internal technology that really helps us to be happier people. Modern technology isn't a practice of being happier and healthier. There's some contentment about it, definitely, and there's some satisfaction, but really to live more vibrantly, it's important to lean into these internal technologies that really help with cultivating energy. And so I think to balance everything that's going on in modern life, all this stress, all the external pull, we need something that really helps get us resourced from the inside out. And I love this practice for that.
And that's a perfect way to wrap this up, because I agree with everything you just said, Lee. So to all of our listeners, thank you for joining wherever you're at in the world. We hope you have a great day and a wonderful rest of your week.